Hello, this is Darren with the American Made First podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We are on episode number 6 with Samuel Welch, Welch Tuning Systems. Really excited to be talking to Samuel. I'm not a drummer, but I'm anxious to learn. So, Samuel, thank you for taking time to talk to us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got involved in the world of drums.
Sure. Well, I have been a drummer most of my life. Started playing when I was a little kid and marched in high school and started gigging in bands when I was about 18 and just always had a passion for it. And I'm also a artist blacksmith by trade. So at one point in my life, those two roads converged and I came up with an idea for a new drum tuning system and kind of was able to combine my passion for artistic ironwork and invent and develop and patent this tuning system for drums. And a company was born out of it.
And when was that?
That was about 10 years ago now.
10 years ago. Okay.
Almost 11, actually. Yeah, when I first had the idea.
When I first learned of Welch Tuning Systems and I connected it to drums, I thought, can you build a system out of a tuning system for drums? But what I've discovered is you're a lot more than just the tuning system. You're the whole package.
Yeah. Well, initially, I had never really invented anything before. And so we put together a prototype and, engineered the system and got our first patent. And then we went to a trade show and I thought I would sell the idea or license it out. And it turns out it's easier said than done. And I realized that the music industry is a hard one to change. It's hard to come with something completely new to an industry that's been doing the same thing for a very long time. And so I quickly realized that I needed to start a drum company. I needed a vehicle to be able to show this system. And so you're right. It went from an idea and a concept to a full-blown drum company with multiple lines of drums. And we manufacture the tuning system and we work with other drum brands as well that we sell the tuning system to. And then we have a couple of lines of drums for ourselves as well.
Okay. Now, I'm a little bit in the musician world, but more vocals than anything. And I'm familiar with tuning instruments, tuning guitars, pianos, saxophones, that type of thing. I didn't realize you had to tune a drum. And what's involved with that? Is it, you're not, I guess you're tuning to pitch, but it's not a specific note, or is it? Explain that so someone like me that doesn't know what tuning a drum is all about.
Well, the mechanics of it are pretty primitive, actually. You have a skin on the drum, which is now made out of mylar. It used to be animal skin. Mm-hmm. And for a traditional drum set, you have a metal hoop that goes around that skin and bolts, essentially, that go down into a bracket attached to the drum shell. And so you're tightening these bolts, which is then stretching the head against the drum shell. The tighter it is, the higher the pitch. There's a lot of schools of thought when it comes to the approach of tuning drums, whether you're tuning to a specific note, which many people do, whether you're just trying to go for an overall sound, also referred to as a color. It's more of just, you get a lot of different frequencies out of a drum. There's a lot of different characteristics. So it's a very personal thing on how people like to tune, but essentially you're just tensioning that skin against the drum shell. Yeah. And you're trying to get even tension all the way around. That's what really opens the drum up and allows it to sing. If you have uneven tension, that can create a loss and sustain unwanted sounds to come out of the drum and things like that.
And that's one of the benefits of your system, right? Because you have a cable. Well, let you explain how that cable runs around the whole thing.
Yeah, well, one of the difficulties is getting that even tension with a traditional drum kit because you've got between 6 to 10 bolts, or they're called tension rods, that go around the circumference of that hoop. And so to get perfectly even tension all the way around can be difficult and time consuming. And that's where I saw the opportunity because we came up with a cable and pulley system. And so this it's a single run of cable that runs from top head to bottom head. So you're actually tensioning both heads together and it equalizes tension around the entire drum. So the result is, they're by far the easiest drums to tune. You don't have to know anything about tuning to get a great sounding drum. And one of the most exciting things is it eliminates that barrier between the drummer and the sound of their instrument. When you have a traditional system that's so complicated, it creates this barrier as a drummer as you're learning the instrument. Most of the time you're not playing a well-tuned instrument. And so this eliminates the barrier. And it's not just for beginners either. We have a lot of professional drummers who are playing this system that just recognize the benefits of being able to change tuning very quickly and have it still sound fantastic, right, which is just impossible with a traditional drum.
Professional, and say you're performing live and the rest of the band has to change key. Would you retune the drum like on the fly between songs, or how does that work?
You certainly could. And I've seen many of our artists do such a thing. For me personally, it's more about the character of the music we're playing.
Mm.
So I like to play in cover bands, for instance. And so one song might be jazz, the next song might be rock. And you can change the tuning of the kit in between songs if you so choose. Or, just one of the drums, like your snare drum, for instance. You can get so many different sounds out of a snare drum to be able to just change the tuning on the fly. You can absolutely do that in the middle of a performance. It's really cool to see the more talented drummers than myself utilize it in more complex ways.
Yeah.
But you can absolutely tune to the key of the song, especially in a studio, something like that, where your time is money. You're recording a song, you want your drums to be tuned in a way that's supportive of the music you're playing, the key of the song. And that can be difficult with a traditional system as well.
Right. Now, I was watching a video on YouTube, and this Dan was demonstrating how you can have some really cool effects with your system by, with one hand, putting more tension or squeezing the cables, which of course puts more or less tension on the drum head. So it's almost like bending the strings when you're playing a guitar, but it's on a drum. I thought that's really cool. I hadn't heard of anything like that. Without affecting, I guess you can do the same thing by pressing on the drum head, but you muffle it to some degree where that doesn't happen with your system. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's right. Yeah, well, it's like anything else, especially with musicians or artists. They're going to find a lot of unique ways to use new technology, and that's certainly one of them.
Yeah. Now, you came up with this whole drum company. You've got a whole line of drums featuring your tuning system, and I see that you're available on some pretty big websites like Sweetwater and things like that. How do you go about marketing your system? Do you have a website, or is it primarily through dealers, or how do you market your systems?
Well, in our industry, certainly working with artists is a great starting point. As far as direct marketing, yes, we have a website. Social media nowadays has really come to the forefront over any kind of print advertising, anything like that. You can reach so many more people through social media. You can track engagement. You can see if people are going to the website. It's a pretty amazing tool. And then we have partners like Sweetwater, who retail partners. They've got a sea of customers, and they're essentially data collectors, right? They're doing the same thing. They're seeing who's visiting the website, who might be a good fit for your product. And it's kind of amazing how deep the rabbit hole goes there. And then we also do trade shows. That's a great way for us to get our product in front of new customers, especially because a lot of the retail stores are closing down these days. The smaller retailers are struggling, and so much is done online that we go to the trade shows just to give people more chances to put their hands on our instruments.
Makes sense. Now, you're based out of Colorado, correct?
That's where the company started. I actually run the company remotely now from northwestern Montana.
What took you to Montana?
Well, we came to visit. My in-laws actually moved up here, and we came to visit and just fell in love with the place and realized that, I could run the company remotely. We've got manufacturing partners both in the States and abroad. And so, I wasn't really tied down to a specific location. And not only is this a beautiful place to be, but it gave me the opportunity to have my blacksmith shop as well.
Okay.
Being an artist has always been a big part of my life. And even though I'm, running a drum company, I never wanted to lose that side of things. So it was just a wonderful opportunity. And I do a lot of the prototyping and such here for the drum company, as well as my blacksmith work. But it was just kind of a perfect scenario to come up here.
Okay. Well, Montana is a gorgeous place. It's called Big Sky Country, and you can't really describe what that means until you experience it. It's like there's a whole different sky over Montana than other parts of the country. It is very wide open spaces. Are you in a suburban area or a city, or are you out in the middle of the country?
Kind of a little bit of both. We're near Glacier National Park, so Flathead County in Montana. And it's nice, it's, it's a growing town. It's like anywhere else. It's growing. It's a beautiful place to be, and people are realizing that. We have a nice little ski resort here and a good sized town. You're a little ways from a city, which is nice, but you're not completely off the grid either. So it's a nice mixture of mountains and plains.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect for us.
Now, you mentioned you have some domestic vendors as well as some vendors from outside the country. Talk to me about that. Obviously, we're promoting American-made American-based companies, but I understand it's a world economy too, and sometimes you can't find, or you can't find at the right price, maybe, components that you need here in the States. Talk to me about that end of things and how you make decisions related to that.
Sure. Well, certainly I am a huge supporter of American made, whether it's being a blacksmith, it doesn't get much more American made than that, forging steel out of my shop,
Yeah,
or the drum world. I always want to support American made. But one thing I realized very early on was that, we cannot manufacture our product in the same quality and the same price as we can overseas. That's just a fact of things, is that if we could, we'd already be doing it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But entering into this, I learned that pretty early, that there's just certain components that really need to come from overseas. I cannot produce them at a accessible price point here in the States.
okay.
So I've tried to take a bit of a balanced approach. We have two different lines of drums. Our Artistry Series drums is our high-end line, and those shells are made here in the United States. And they are about twice as expensive as our imported line. They're very high quality, and it certainly is geared towards a specific buyer, and people who really want the best.
Sure.
But that's also not to degrade the quality of our overseas line as well.
Sure.
Something that I've realized is it almost doesn't matter where it's made. It matters who's calling the shots as far as quality control goes. At least that's been my personal experience. Now, I'm sure that can vary depending on who you talk to. But for us, I realized that I could provide more value to my customers by having certain parts manufactured overseas. Mm-hmm. And I certainly tried. Don't get me wrong. I went out and looked for vendors here in the United States when we first got started. And I just realized that I'd have such a small market if, for the cost of making everything here in the United States. Right. So yeah, we went with a bit of a hybrid approach.
And that end of things is always evolving as well, as, different leadership comes into the country. Tariffs, I'm sure, are affecting things. Entrepreneurs here in the States are always looking for opportunities to fill a need. So you never know when someone's going to figure out a way to build a component that you up to this point couldn't get here in the States competitively. Maybe one day you will. That's one of the reasons, we're doing this show, is to encourage entrepreneurs and give them ideas and challenge them to fill a need, find a need and fill it.
Sure.
Anything, looking back over what you said, 10 years, right? You've been doing this. Anything you would have done differently? Now, this is kind of for the entrepreneur that wants to do something similar to what you've done. Any advice you can give, anything you would do differently?
It's such a hard thing to say, because through every mistake was a lesson learned. And, it's the pathway that's brought me to where we are. I went into this, I never went to college, and I was a blacksmith. I was completely outside the world of marketing and mass manufacturing. And really the musical instrument world, other than just being a drummer myself. I'd say one of the most valuable things that I did was I found a mentor very early on. I found somebody who had built businesses and who gave me the opportunity to learn from their experience and their mistakes. That propelled us forward exponentially. And honestly, the same as with my blacksmithing career. It's one thing to just start off watching Forged in Fire and pick up a cheap anvil and a forge and start tinkering yourself, versus I walked in, when I started apprenticing at a fully functional forge, and I was propelled ahead so much quicker learning from other people's experience. So I would say anybody looking to take that road of entrepreneurship, to try to find a mentor. I think that's a huge thing. As far as what I do differently, I can't say I can think of anything. I've certainly made mistakes along the way. Mm-hmm. But each one of those mistakes has helped me grow, and we're still here. So I'd say that they were all necessary.
Okay. I'll give a tip of the hat to an old high school teacher that is no longer with us, unfortunately, but he used to say, you've heard it said that experience is your best teacher. And he says, I'm here to tell you that's not quite true. Someone else's experience is your best teacher. Your own experience, comes at a cost. You learn from someone else's mistakes. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Good old Jerry Cook. He had some good wisdom. Well, tell me, let's transition a little bit, since you've got two businesses really that you're doing out there. Tell us a little bit about your blacksmith business and where folks might be able to look in on what you're doing there.
Sure. Well, I am just a solo shop, unlike the drum company where I'm trying to scale the business. and potentially sell it one day. The blacksmith shop, it's just solo. And I prefer it that way. I
Okay.
have no intention to scale whatsoever,
All right.
which might be a little contrary to what a lot of other entrepreneurs and business owners out there would think would be the goal. But the fact is I've worked for larger blacksmith shops. I've managed people, and that's not really how I like to spend my time. I'm an artist, I'm a craftsman. As soon as you hire one person, you're trying to get them work instead of doing the work
Right.
yourself.
True.
And so yeah, you can find me at welchcustomiron.com, and I just specialize in very high-end ornamental architectural ironwork. So I do railings and fireplace doors, things of this nature. I'm kind of dipping my toe more into the fine art realm now, where I'm only taking very high-end projects, doing bronze repoussé. Everything's hand forged. Everything's made right here in my shop in Montana. Even hinges, I won't buy hinges. I will make them from scratch. I take a lot of pride in making pretty much everything from scratch, and that includes the tools that I use to make the product.
Wow.
And it's really a fascinating trade. It's something that just brings me fulfillment. It's a challenge. It kind of ticks all the boxes for me.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, when I'm retired, it just means that I'm doing my work on my own terms. I won't
Right.
leave that blacksmith shop until I physically can't be there anymore. That's how much I enjoy it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, what do they say? When you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe that because it's darn hard work, but I certainly understand
But
that
it's work you
mindset.
enjoy. You look forward to it, right?
That's right.
Right.
Well, and it's cool too because there's been a lot of crossover actually with the drum company because, like I mentioned, I do a lot of the prototyping
Hmm.
for the drum company here in my own shop. And so it's really allowed me to bring a little bit more in-house, have more control over it, which allows me to dictate the quality control and the specific parameters that need to be met in order for us to produce a good product. Again, whether it's made here or overseas. But
Okay.
yeah, some interesting crossover there.
So if someone wanted to get started as a drummer, say their parents want to buy them their first drum set, but they want them to get something that they can build on. They could come to you. Give us an idea what a drum set, beginning drum set, up to a full-blown system for a professional. Is there a range of what something like that would cost?
Absolutely. Well, and honestly, we don't have a product for a beginner drummer yet.
Okay.
That's something that we're still trying to work towards, is being able to manufacture it cost effectively enough to be an entry level instrument. So even going overseas, we're not manufacturing at such high quantities that we can break down that barrier to entry. So right now we really only have professional instruments.
I see.
And 3-piece drum set, so a bass drum and a couple of tom-toms. We'll start at about $2,000 for our overseas made line and about $3,500 for our US made line. In the world of musical instruments, you can buy a beginner kid's drum set for maybe $300. I can't even manufacture a single drum for that cost.
Right.
So it is something that I hope to build towards in the future. But something that I've really dug my heels in pretty hard with is I will not compromise on quality. And I won't make a cheap product. While I hope to make an affordable product someday, I never want to make a cheap product. I think there's, for lack of a better term, enough crap in the world, and I don't want to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, do you have foreign competitors within your same line of drums that you're fighting against all the time?
Not yet. I think that is likely to going to come in the future, but we did obtain patents in many other countries as well. So, nowadays I've heard it's actually easier, and I could be wrong. Any of this stuff, no, this is just coming from my own experience and opinion, but I've heard that it's easier to litigate a patent in China now than it is in the United States, because big companies can just say, sue us, take us to court, we'll bleed you dry fighting us. And it's sad. It's sad. But right now we don't have any direct competitors, at least with our system. There's actually another company here in the US that took a different approach to a similar idea. And I actually am very grateful they're in the market with us, because we came to market at almost the same time. We didn't know about each other until we were already well in the process, which is kind of funny. We kind of developed these ideas at very similar times, and now we're both on the market. Again, we've taken two different approaches to using a wire rope or cable as a tensioning means for drums, but again, much different approaches. And it's nice because having them in the market with us, it further validates the concept. We're not just totally on our own here, but luckily we're not competing with a Chinese company knocking us off yet. I think that likely happens when you reach a certain level of success. It's almost a compliment, a horrible compliment,
Absolutely.
but it's almost a
Imitation is the best
compliment.
form of flattery.
Sure, yeah. So if that day comes, we've certainly, built a great IP portfolio to be able to protect ourselves from that. We have patents in China and Japan and pending in the EU, Canada, Australia. We've really tried to cover the market segments that make up the majority of the market.
Okay. All right. Fascinating. Well, again, like I said, I'm not a drummer, but if I was going to get into drums, just knowing that you've got multiple tuning rods as opposed to a system like yours where I can do a one turn and do the whole both heads at the same time, that's a no-brainer to me. I'm going with Welch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think as we grow, especially as our manufacturing capabilities expand, one day we will have that entry level instrument. But right now, we're working hard to try to get our instruments in schools, getting kids growing up on these.
Yeah.
So even if maybe they can't afford it themselves yet, you're right. When you experience our system and that barrier between the musician and the sound of the instrument is gone.
Yeah.
It changes the game. It's really a pretty amazing thing. When I first experienced our first prototype, at that point I had been playing drums for nearly 20 years probably, and I had never gotten my drums to sound that good before, and I did it with zero effort. That's kind of when I knew I was at a crossroads in my life.
Yeah.
My decision, changed the course forever.
That's amazing. How hard was it to do the patent process?
Well, that one I really went school hard knocks with. My mentor and I, neither of us had written a patent before, but we started off with just reading a lot of other patents, and you start getting an idea of the structure, the way it's written. So much of this company was school of hard knocks for me. Again, I had a great mentor, but a lot of it started with a Google search. And so, yeah, I studied patents a lot. I studied how they were written. Having the technical ability from being a blacksmith helped me look at the aspects of our system and our product and how it was different from what's out there, and really be able to craft that patent. And what's interesting is that we wrote our initial patent, and we submitted it. And then, a couple years later, you get response from the patent examiner.
Really, that long?
It can absolutely take that long. Might have been a year and a half, but yeah, you're just sitting there waiting and hoping. In our own search, we didn't really find any competing patents. Well, the patent examiner came up with maybe 10 or 12 competing patents going back to the 80s. And my heart sank. I was like, oh my gosh, like somebody's already thought of this. But I realized that we did it differently. And that was a big part of the patent process that was really interesting to me, especially this day and age, I feel like it's hard to come up with something completely new. But I did have a different approach. And what it was I needed to identify and clearly state why ours is different and how it operates differently, and why the design produces a different result than these other patents that are out there. And that's how we were able to secure the first one and the subsequent patents, was realizing that, what we built was basically modern rope drums. We're going back to the roots of drumming and rope drums, but there's a lot of little things, engineering and design, that made our system just function so much better than everything in the past. And that's essentially what we were able to patent was our improvements on old.
Yep. Now, how long in a standard drum set with all the tension rods, how long does it take to tune a set? Say an artist is setting up for a gig and he's got, 6 drums, half a dozen drums? How long does it take him to tune that system?
If you're really good at it, I feel like you'll spend at least 5 minutes a drum.
Okay.
And if you're not very good at it, you'll spend as much time as you have getting them to sound the best as you can.
So you could spend 30, 45 minutes tuning your set of drums.
Easily. Okay. Absolutely easily. And then they sit up, you tune your drums a couple hours before you play.
Yeah.
And then they're sitting there under the hot stage lights, and they're warming up, and we all know temperature changes things.
And you tweak them again?
Changes metal. And you get up on stage and you start playing and you're stuck. No, at that point you're stuck with that tuning, because you can't bust out a drum key mid performance with a
Right.
traditional drum.
Right.
And so, yeah, with our system, you can not only change the tuning in about 30 seconds, but you can correct it. If you tune it all up and it sounds great when you sit up, but then you get on stage and things have gotten a little flat or a little sharp, you can make those corrections and you don't have to compromise your sound anymore.
That's amazing.
It's really almost a new instrument,
Yeah.
and that's something I've realized marketing it. It's almost like the old way isn't necessarily a competitor. I mean, this is almost a new instrument because it gives you such better accessibility and the option to explore the different sounds as well.
Sounds like an evolution, a remarkable improvement or evolution in the whole drum system process setup. I don't know what you mean. Revolutionary. It sounds revolutionary to me.
Yeah, we certainly feel that way too, and the people who have gotten their hands on it absolutely feel that way as well.
That's really awesome.
It's really interesting, and something I'm very proud of is just how simple and mechanical it is. Especially in today's world of technology, it was really cool that we were able to develop something so mechanically simple that made such a big difference.
Yeah.
The way it's used and its capabilities. And but it's also interesting because, like I mentioned before, you have this barrier of thought process. People are used to doing things a certain way. Drums have been tuned the same way for the last 100 years. So something that's very common is people see our system, and even though to us it's a no-brainer, and anyone who's put their hands on it, it's a no-brainer. There's so much skepticism around it because I don't think people can believe that it's actually that easy. There's no way that can work. There's no way that can sound good.
Right.
Oh, there's no way that, there's no way. And, but, all you have to do is start listening to the people who have actually put their hands on it, not just the keyboard warriors. And you find out real quick that these have been on the biggest stages in the world. That these are being chosen by top-notch performing and recording artists, and we're just getting started in so many ways. We've been at it 10 years. It took about 5 years to secure our patents, to engineer, to build the supply chain, to have a product. So we've been on the market about 5 years now. And in the drum world, I think in the musical instrument world, that's just getting started.
Yeah. Are you comfortable dropping any names that people might know that have found your system and like your system or using it?
Sure. I mean, I can certainly drop names of the guys who are officially affiliated with us. One thing in the drum world, or in musical instruments in general, is artists are often endorsed or endorse other companies.
Okay.
So a lot of your top-notch musicians, have been with companies for 20 years and playing their brands. Many of them have chose our instruments instead, but are still affiliated with those companies. So I'm not going to drop their names here.
Okay.
But if you go on our website, under the artist section, you'll see some of our top artists. Joe Russo is just one of my favorites. He plays in a lot of different projects. He recently was on stage at Madison Square Garden with the Brothers, which was an Allman Brothers collaboration, and did a few nights there. I'm not going to do him any justice trying to talk about his accolades, but I highly recommend you look up Joe Russo. Steve Pruitt and Dylan Wissing, Justin Sweeney, some of these guys have just played with top-notch people. Dylan Wissing is an amazing recording artist, a studio musician, and he's on many records. And, again, I encourage you to go to our website, go to the artist section. You'll be able to dive into a lot of the artists who are playing these drums. And then, like I said, a lot of guys behind the scenes, guys in Broadway, guys nationally touring, are playing our instruments because, even if you're great at tuning drums, like I said, this just offers a new capability with the instrument, and anybody who likes to push boundaries and explore new things is intrigued by this, because to be able to change the sound in a couple seconds really allows you to think a lot more about how the drums are tuned to the context of the music and not just how the drums sound by themselves.
Okay.
And I think this is where the really high-end players are seeing a new utility and new opportunity.
All right. So your website again is welchtuningsystems.com. And that's Welch like the grape juice, not an SH, but a CH.
Yeah.
Welch. And tell me again the website for your forge, the artist end of not artist end of things, but yeah. What was the other website?
Welch Custom Iron. So I'm not super creative in the naming conventions of things, but
nothing wrong with that. You can tell from the name of the website kind of what you're in for. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great. Appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to throw out there before we wrap up?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting being someone who kind of straddles this line where I support American-made manufacturing, but I also recognize the necessity of global partners. And some food for thought I just like to throw out there for your listeners is, above all else, I'd say I'm a supporter of American companies and recognizing that in the world today, American made doesn't necessarily support American companies. So let's take tariffs, for instance, right? In certain industries, I'm sure that benefited American companies. In other industries, it blindsided us. For those of us who didn't have options to produce our product or components of our product affordably and effectively in the United States prior to those, the only thing that it did is make our product cost more to the American consumer. Any way you slice it, I know there's a lot of rhetoric going around. The importer pays the tariffs.
Sure.
I hate to say it, but the importer pays the tariffs. So that means that's a cost. That is a cost to manufacture. That cost gets put on the consumer.
Sure.
Or it hurts the business, or both.
Yeah.
And that's what we took, because, the thing is we price our products as fairly as possible. We price our products so that we have enough margin to have a real business, but not so much that we're trying to gouge our customers. So when those tariffs hit, again, that was an extra cost for us. We kind of split it. We had to raise our pricing a little bit, and then we lowered our margin a little bit. I think that if you want to support American made, the infrastructure has to be there first. The opportunity to effectively manufacture in the United States needs to be there first, not just making it harder to import things from overseas. Now, this is a personal opinion. I think that it certainly depends on your business, how it's structured. Again, for a lot of people, I think that tariffs could have been a great thing because it produced challenges to maybe their competitors, where if I'm manufacturing everything in-house, that could have helped me. But I think it's about balance. I really do. I think that our global partners are extremely important. I think that breaking down barriers between global partnerships is really important because those are also customers of ours. And realize that if we're importing products and then trying to sell them outside the United States, tariffs are only making things more difficult there. So I'm someone that believes in balance. And that's just, that was a point that I wanted to make when I saw you, inquire about American Made First, is that I just want people to recognize that not everything is black and white, that you can be pro-American business while also recognizing the necessity and importance of global manufacturing. That as a business who does both, I try to support American businesses as much as I can. But if I'm selling 10 times more product because I'm importing some overseas, I'm employing more shipping personnel. I'm employing more retail personnel.
Yeah.
It goes down the line. It all kind of works together. It's, if that makes sense. Again, I want people to think about being pro-American business, because just sometimes as a business owner, you can provide more value to your customer by making some things overseas. And like you said, there'll be some entrepreneurs out there that develop new techniques and open the door to be able to manufacture more here in the States. And that's fantastic. Guess what? If somebody else comes to me and says, I can make your product here at the same cost you can overseas, no question, I will make it here.
Sure.
Again, I'd already be doing it. If I didn't have to wait 3 months for it to ship by boat to come over here,
Right.
I mean, it just simplifies the process. But just some food for thought that, just because a business utilizes some overseas manufacturing doesn't mean that it's not benefiting down the chain the other side.
No, I agree. And it's not black and white. And the tariffs, I know, have hurt some businesses. I think there are growing pains involved. I think it has caused some more investment, even from foreign companies, into the U.S. But, if we want to compete with the world economy or foreign competitors, and they have a better price point on a comparable product, then we've got to get better. If we're not the best deal in the game, then we have to accept that and do what we can to get better. Now, I just want to encourage people to, when you're thinking about a drum set, don't just go out and find the cheapest thing you can because it's on Amazon. Look into the quality of the product. See if there's an American-made product that's similar. Maybe the American-made product is a little more. Try to understand why. Maybe once they understand that the $2,000 drum from Taiwan or China or wherever is not as good a deal because the Welch Tuning Systems drum has that advantage of being able to tune so quickly, and you can adjust that tune. There are reasons many times that justify a little more investment in a product. And I just want my listeners to at least think American made first. Is there a product out there that I can buy American made that will support our fellow countrymen, support our economy? If not, then we have to get better at what we do here in the States.
I totally agree. Well, and I think too, and again, I think there's definitely going to be industries that, some of the recent changes will help. And I totally agree with investing more into the States. And something I'd really like to see too is more IP protection for American companies as well. Because
Yes.
certainly one issue we have is how accessible knockoff products are here. I would love to see that cut off at the knees, because I think that also people would be able to look and support American businesses that and know that the development and the IP are coming from home, and then as we progress and as we grow in our manufacturing capabilities, certainly if we're investing more and more in the US, we can work towards a lot more being manufactured here. So it's like anything else, there's two sides to every coin, but I would I appreciate everyone who's already supported our American business here. And I would also encourage the same thing you are, is you'll see a lot of knockoffs out there. Try to find the source. Even if people are making things overseas, find the company that created it. That, because that's supporting in both ways. No, I appreciate you having me on here, and and what you're doing to bring attention to American manufacturing. Because I'm on both sides. And it is important.
Yep.
It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will continue to try to encourage people to seek out American-made products, American-made companies like yours. Wasn't familiar with Welch Tuning Systems, but you can bet that when I talk to my musician friends, I'm going to talk about your tuning system. Say, have you ever heard of this guy? You need to check it out. But
I appreciate that very much.
But all of you out there, especially in the musician world, you need to check out Welch Tuning Systems. And for the rest of you, thank you, Samuel, first of all, for taking your time to be a guest here on the show. It's been a pleasure and very informative. I hope to reconnect with you soon.
Thanks very much.
And for the rest of you out there, thank you for tuning in. And as you make your purchasing decisions, please try to think American made first.